Once you start the process of planning, it's just you continue moving your search forward day to day.
Tonight, the search and rescue effort for a missing man in the Northwest Territories.
We need to showcase that we are proud of who we are and that our future generations need to know that we were proud, our ancestors were proud.
A Dene book preserving language, healing, and culture in Saskatchewan.
So you just want to kind of just zone in, relax, and then all of a sudden you'll see a weird little movement or a call, and then you try to find it with your binoculars.
And we take you on a bird excursion with an Indigenous lens. Good evening, I'm Chris N.W.T. Welcome to APTN National News. The trial continues in Winnipeg for a man who says he killed 4 Indigenous women. But Jeremy Skibicki's lawyer says he is NCR, or not criminally responsible, due to mental illness. However, the Crown says he knew what he was doing and that it was racially motivated. They called on his estranged wife with questions about what he was like with her. Our T.R. Wheatley has more, and a warning, this report has disturbing details.
The estranged wife of Jeremy Skibicki, who APTN has decided not to name, told court on Thursday about having a rocky relationship with him from the beginning in 2018 until she left him in the spring of 2021, one that was filled with emotional, sexual, and physical abuse. The Métis woman told court that for most of the relationship, she was on sleeping medication for PTSD. She said Skibicki and her would fight about taking them. At one point, she said he told her, quote, he had a fetish for Sleeping Beauty syndrome. She said he would have sex with her lifeless body because he liked rag dolls. If she didn't take sleeping pills, he would penalize her by sodomizing her. She met him at the Siloam Mission in Winnipeg on February 1st, 2018, she told court. Skibicki and 2 of his friends approached her, asking if she wanted to go back to his apartment. She said she was using crystal meth at the time and knew she wouldn't get a bed at the shelter, so she left with the men to Skibicki's. At the time, he was living somewhere else, not the apartment police searched in 2022. The estranged wife told court she remembers Skibicki telling his friends, I really like this one. She ended up staying with him for a few weeks. She told court she became pregnant from Skibicki, but it ended in a miscarriage. She said Skibicki kept her from leaving his place and took out all the phone lines. She recalled, quote, he would spit on me and laughed at me, and I sat there naked for a few days. She told court she tried to leave him and even found her own place, but he began coming there and causing ruckus to the point where she was evicted. She moved back with Skibicki but was allowed to come and go. On September 4th, 2018, she married him. She told the court she had nowhere else to go and she felt stuck. She testified that once they were married, he started getting even more controlling, telling her a wife has to listen to her husband no matter what. His emotional hold on her got worse. She even told court that he told her he put a chip in her body to track her. Around their first anniversary, she told court she was in treatment and filed for a protection order. Despite this, she testified the cycle of leaving and going back to him continued. Each time, the physical violence got worse. She told court at one point Skibicki pulled a knife on her. On another occasion, she said Skibicki was smothering her. When he stopped, she told him to keep going and that he would get caught anyway because police knew she was at his place. He continued to smother her but eventually stopped. Then in March 2021, she left to go to her mom's and didn't return. She said around that time she found out she was pregnant again. She testified that she told Skibicki on Facebook she was getting an abortion. She never heard from him again until the spring of 2022, communicating on Facebook from March 26 until May 17. On May 11th, they spent 2 hours together on a phone call that she initiated. She said, I had a terrible feeling about something Skibicki said to her 2 nights before. He mentioned having to do 3 life sentences, adding, please forgive me if I end up going to prison for life. Court heard that Skibicki didn't reveal anything else to her on that call, but she says she spent a lot of time praying for him. Defense also cross-examined her with questions focusing on Skibicki's state of mind. The trial continues tomorrow with testimony from another woman who knew Skibicki. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
For more on this trial, head over to aptnnews.ca for stories by our web reporter, Kathleen Martins. And if you are triggered by this report, supports are available 24/7 through the MMIWG2S support line. That number is 1-844-413-6649. The family of a missing man in the Northwest Territories say they need more support searching for their loved one. Our reporter, Charlotte Moore-Jacobs, headed out to their search camp to learn more. Here's that story.
On this busy stretch of highway outside of Yellowknife, a camp forms. Family and friends desperate to find Ralph Bolio, a 54-year-old experienced Dene hunter and trapper who has been missing for over a week. He was dropped off at his cabin near Boundary Creek on April 23rd. His brother was scheduled to pick him up on May 8th, but when he arrived, Ralph was nowhere to be found. Cousins like Lorraine Villeneuve have been driving up from Fort Resolution and pulling long hours.
Trying to get the stuff organized here. I brought some radios and a little bit of stuff for, the crews that are out on the search and rescue, just to keep contact with us over here on this end, because I think it's like a 45-minute walk to the cabin.
But the search has been facing some roadblocks. Members from the Canadian Rangers have been out, but are not permitted to coordinate as a group to search.
We can't wear our uniforms, so we had to be in our civvies. And they won't get the Canadian Rangers out until the RCMP would release or ask them to ask for assistance.
Yellowknife's volunteer ground search and rescue team has been sending members out. Ralph's 2 rifles, shoes, eyeglasses, and a back support strap have been recovered.
All in the same sort of an area. So it is not like stuff lying on the ground.
Yeah, he was moving or something like that.
Oh yeah, he was moving. Hopefully not very fast. So anyway, it kind of gives us a few clues about where we think we might be searching next, but we're still also cleaning up some areas we've missed.
Yeah.
Search manager Tom Gergwire says they're going to begin using comprehensive maps to continue moving the search forward day by day.
Once you start the process of planning, it's just you continue moving your search forward day to day. And that's essentially what we'll be doing. So we're definitely here until the end of this week through to the long weekend.
Ralph's sister, Eva Bolio, says she's frustrated that RCMP haven't been out helping much until today. They were initially there when Ralph was reported missing, but she says the family has been left in the dark for much of the week.
We've complained, MLAs, chiefs, been out here, we've talked to them. On Tuesday, we had 6 rangers that couldn't use their uniform that came out to help do the search from Yellowknife area. We only seen the RCMP once on Saturday for a couple of minutes that talked to the people out here, but didn't even go into the woods.
RCMP Constable Ryan Price says the first search last week was like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Some items have been located, so it'll give us a more specific area to search instead of just a big, broad, general area out in the woods.
As the day goes on, more people gather, showing their support.
I just pray that we bring Ralph home to the family. So if you could light a candle and do a little prayer for Ralph and the family.
Charlotte Moore Jacobs, APTN National News, near Boundary Creek.
Now to BC, where the Haida Gwaii Reconciliation Act has now become law. Known as the Rising Tide Haida Title Land Agreement, is being described as a historic legislation that recognizes Haida Aboriginal title throughout the traditional territory of the Haida Gwaii, including over 200 islands along the northwest coast of British Columbia. It has now received royal assent in the BC legislature.
I've always had faith in the Haida. Very, very strong people. Very well organized. They've had incredible leadership over their history, and they were one of the first Indigenous groups that I know of that developed their own constitution. And that was a very, very volatile debate, but they did it. So all decisions now are made by the entire populace in a legislative setting.
South of the Medicine Line, a school in northwestern New Mexico says it will be reviewing its graduation ceremony attire policy to include more cultural elements. This comes after a recent incident involving an Indigenous student whose beaded grad cap was taken away by 2 school staff members in exchange for a plain one. In this May 13th video, you can see grad student Genesis Whitebull visibly upset while being asked to take off her grad cap. The cap was decorated, beaded, and prayed for by her family, who wanted to make her day extra special. An eagle plume was also attached to the tassel. The White Bull family said they found the cap in a lost and found bin after the ceremony. The beadwork was damaged and the string holding the plume had been cut. The family questioned why Genesis was singled out when other students with modifications to their caps were not. Farmington Municipal School told APTN News students were informed throughout the year that caps and gowns may not be altered. In a statement, they added, while the staff involved were following district guidelines, we acknowledge this could have been handled differently and better. Moving forward, we will work to refine our processes at the school level. APTN News reached out to both Genesis White Bull and her mother, Brenda, but did not get a response. We want to hear on what you think about this exact story you just saw. Here's how to continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories you may have missed, go to aptnnews.ca. You can also follow along with us on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Hit that like or follow APTN News button to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Time now for a break, but when we return, we will hear from an Innu University student who is part of a pro-Palestinian encampment in Quebec.
I want to remind people that Palestinians are indigenous to their land and they're going through a genocide. We're still in a genocide. We've gone through it.
Welcome back. Following McGill University's lead, students from the Montreal campus of the University of Quebec have set up their own pro-Palestinian encampment. APTN's Maricela Amador spoke with an Innu student who is part of the movement.
Ça impacte pas, je pense. Le message n'est pas impacté par le visage ou non, selon moi.
Zan Choquette is an Innu student. He attends the University of Quebec's Montreal campus, or UQAM, and stands in solidarity with Palestinians.
I think that we have to realize as Indigenous people to the importance of solidarity across a different Indigenous nation, because I want to remind people that Palestinians are Indigenous to their land and they're going through a genocide. We're still in a genocide. We've gone through it.
Choquette is part of a second pro-Palestinian encampment recently erected in Montreal. Students from UQAM have joined protests at universities across the country, including McGill. Choquette says he first joined the McGill protest when it was first set up last month.
We're there in solidarity with McGill, but also we have our own demands and stuff. But yeah, it's just, I've been there, and I think it's important to be here as much as possible.
The student group is demanding an academic boycott against Israel from all Quebec universities. They want the university to also not invest in companies with ties to Israel, and the closing of the Quebec government's office in Tel Aviv. Leila Khaled is a student at the university and a spokesperson for the encampment.
D'abord, nous, notre campement est sorti du campement de McGill. Donc c'est une continuité un peu de la lutte qui a commencé à McGill et qui était le premier carrément au niveau Canada. Maintenant, je pense autour de 13 ou 14 à travers le Canada. C'est quand même fascinant de voir que le nombre est en train de se multiplier et on espère que ça se multiplie encore plus.
Yesterday, a Quebec Superior Court judge rejected McGill University's request for an injunction to remove the pro-Palestinian encampment from their campus. It is the second injunction request a Quebec court has denied.
The atmosphere is really great for real. We see a really strong sense of community, and like for some people, I heard some people being like, "It's the first time I experience this community feeling."
Choquette acknowledges that he is taking a risk by openly being part of this movement. But ultimately, he said he knows he is doing the right thing. Maricela Amador, APTN National News, Montreal.
The community of Lash in northern Saskatchewan is sharing more Dene stories. The second volume of the Dene Strong series has brought together the community to share tales of courage, resilience, and wisdom. Here's Rachel May, who sat down with the people behind the book.
We need to showcase that we are proud of who we are, and that our future generations need to know that we were proud, our ancestors were proud.
Land, Language and Culture Coordinator at Lash Dene High School, Shane Janvier, says his home community has a lot of stories to tell. Dene Strong, too, has 16 stories translated to English to showcase their community's spirit. He says this book is about language, healing, and preserving culture.
We fought so hard just to keep our language, our traditions, our culture alive till today. And I still hold that, I still hold that in my heart. I still believe that my culture is strong.
Editor Marianne Neal volunteers with Indigenous communities across Canada and worked with Janvier on both volumes of Dene Strong. She says once they finished Volume 1, she saw the need for even more written stories.
Because I think we're just getting started. Like really, there's so many stories that are yet untold, and the elders are getting older, and a lot of the stories are dying with them.
This second book features pictures taken in Lash and a glossary of Dene words and phrases. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Before the break, here's something else we're looking at. Students at the University of Manitoba established a bird watching group. We go out with them on a birding excursion.
Really, it's simple what we do. It's just connecting people and nature for all the benefits that brings. So the mental benefits, the emotional, physical, and the spiritual.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. From the Gitxsan Nation, Clarence Jones continues to share some incredible views. Here is a recent sunset he was able to enjoy. Thank you for snapping that pic and thinking of us, Clarence. If you have a picture to share, send it to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Over on the East Coast, St. John 6, Charlottetown 21. Northern Quebec, Inujuak 5, La Grande River 18. Quebec City 21, Montreal 24 with cloud. Toronto 20, London 22. Northern Ontario, Timmins 20, Wawa 17 with cloud. Northern Manitoba, Churchill 5, God's Lake 14. Southern Manitoba, Gimli 18, Brandon 23. Southern Saskatchewan, North Battleford 14, Regina 18 with cloud. Stony Rapids 11, La Ronge 8. Over in Northern Alberta, Fort Chipewyan 5, Peace River 12. Southern Alberta, Red Deer 9, Lethbridge 12. Campbell River 16, Penticton 17. Northern BC, Smithers 14, Dease Lake 10. The Yukon, Old Crow 10, Mayo 17. Northwest Territories, Wrigley 14, Fort Simpson 16. Colville Lake 8, Inuvik 4. Over in Nunavut, Chesterfield -1, Whale Cove -1 as well. And Arctic Bay -5, Aglulik -5 as well with some clouds. The annual Vision Quest conference that's held in Winnipeg every year wrapped up today with a familiar name.
Always great to hear from you and be around you.
Awesome, yeah, it's always good to get back to Manitoba, where basically my hockey career started,
Keynote speaker Jordan Tutu was joined by a familiar face, APTN National News host Dennis Ward, for a fireside chat, where Tutu spoke about how important it is to be a leader in your community. He talked about family and also the tough topic of suicide. He also took some questions from the crowd asking about what was the hardest part of going into the NHL.
When you go into a place of unknown, it's scary, right? Many of us have been there. But it's also a risk that you have to take in order to grow as an individual. A lot of times we live in a bubble in our remote communities.
In Winnipeg, an Indigenous birding club at the University of Manitoba is helping people connect with nature while sharing Indigenous knowledge. Our reporter Sierra Bettens joined them on their weekly walk.
House sparrow, female house sparrow, right there. So you just want to kind of just zone in, relax, and then all of a sudden you'll see a weird little movement or a call, and then you try to find it with your binoculars, and then...
Spring has sprung at the University of Manitoba, and that means the raucous Canada geese have returned to their seasonal home. But if you listen closely, dozens of bird varieties can be heard. And the folks who run the university's Indigenous Birding Club are helping people tune in.
It's simple what we do. It's just connecting people and nature for all the benefits that brings. So the mental benefits, the emotional, physical, and the spiritual.
Last May, Bailey Hendry and Justin Rasmussen, both Métis, founded the U of M Indigenous Birding Club. Every Thursday, the birders meet in front of the Luriel statue at the Mikizi Agamik Lounge. For 90 minutes, participants can decompress, connect with nature, and glean Indigenous knowledge of birds.
Throughout the pandemic, birding kind of just became a thing for a lot of people. And I was, talking to Justin, I was like, I feel like it would just be an awesome thing to combine the two and bring them here as an opportunity for students to engage in community, culture, and birding together.
Rasmussen holds a PhD in biological sciences and a lifelong fascination with birds. Hendry, who works at the Indigenous Student Centre, started birding during the pandemic. As one of the first Indigenous birding clubs in Canada, the organizers stress the importance of community, engaging with elders, and promoting Indigenous knowledge of birds.
We've had knowledge about birds for hundreds and hundreds of years, and we also have a lot of elders in our community who hold that knowledge. So one of the things that we do and what we've done is we've brought elders from the community to do teachings about birds. There was an event that we held for people to come and harvest an eagle together, and we heard about eagle teachings and so forth. So there's lots of opportunities for them to engage, and obviously the geese agree with me.
During walks, organizers reject having a guide. Instead, they encourage participation and collaboration.
We try to change the dynamic of having one expert sharing knowledge, and instead we go out as a group as equals, and everyone has something to share, and we all learn from each other.
Coming up on their one-year anniversary, the club continues to provide a space for people to learn and just be.
When we shed our titles and just become humans out there appreciating nature, we feel that that's where real relationships can form.
Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thank you, Sierra. Now here's Fraser Needham in Ottawa on what's ahead on Nation to Nation.
We'll talk to Métis Nation of Alberta President Andrea Sandmeyer about why she thinks the Manitoba Métis Federation is on the wrong track with its Indigenous Identity Fraud Summit that happened this week. APTN's Kathleen Martins has been attending the Jeremy Skibicki murder trial every day this week. She is here to talk about what it means for the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And Yellowknife Dr. Courtney Howard is on the show to talk about how wildfires affect a person's health. All this immediately after this evening's national news broadcast.
That's all the time we have for this Thursday. We'll be back again for your midday newscast tomorrow. From everyone at APTN National News, hi miigwech, masicho, and thank you for watching.